our May 2021 meeting. We have a couple of new people this evening, so I think we'll take a minute and introduce them. One of them, well, let's start with Eric and Heidi. If you could just say a little something about yourself and then why you're here this evening.
Sure. Thank you for inviting us. So we are from Norway. We moved to US 6 years ago, and we have founded two companies within sustainability. So one company is Pure Green Landscaping. So we provide a fully battery operated landscaping company with expertise within robotic lawnmowers. So we are providing robotic lawnmowers to a lot of homes around here in Greenwich, also Rye, and also going down to Larchmont, Mamaroneck, and neighbor communities around here. And then we also have another company, which is a tech platform, green company, that is matching green-minded homeowners with local green vendors. This is a facilitation platform. So thank you for having us.
Great. Well, we'll get back to you a little bit later, but also as we get started, Robin, could you just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit about what your interests might be?
Well, I've been interested in sustainability and food production, things like that for many, many years. And I've been particularly interested in Slow Food, that organization. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with it, but I've lived in New Rochelle for over 10 years. And I just learned about the Repair Cafe and finally got in touch with them a few months ago. And that's what I sort of like to volunteer some time there and look for some other things to do, you know, to help in the development in New Rochelle, which is going ahead to with some major development in downtown at the moment. So we'll see how that goes. And basically, I'm here to learn, actually. So I'm very interested to hear what you have to say, because I'm not sure whether New Rochelle actually has a sustainability cooperative like yours here. So we may have to ask them if we would like to start one in New Rochelle. Okay.
Great, thank you. And then one other person, Renee, I'm not sure you've joined us previously, have you?
Yeah, hi. I have previously been at a couple meetings, actually. I'm with the Committee for the Environment for the Village of Mamaroneck.
Oh.
So I have sat in on a couple of your meetings previously, just to sort of report back to our committee, see what we can collaborate on.
Great, thank you.
And
all
Mitch,
right, well, we have, I think everybody hopefully has the agenda. We have a fairly crowded agenda this evening.
Mitch, can I just mention, Renee has been kind enough to be supportive of us in the Healthy Yards team. So I just want to say thank you, Renee.
Oh, great, thank you. So our first order of business is the meeting notes from last month. Has anybody had a chance to take a look at them?
Yep.
Okay, any thoughts about these minutes? Any comments, questions, additions, corrections? Yes.
I have one suggested change, and this just relates to something that has my name attached to it, so I want to just clarify on it. On page 1, 2, 3, second to last paragraph on the page, where you have regarding the proposed Healthy Yards Garden Tour, June announced the Healthy Yards Group will hold off on conducting their own Healthy Yards Garden Tour and instead promote the Pollinator Pathways Garden Tour. We're going to support it.
Oh,
So I'm not actively developing an outreach plan for that. I just want to clarify. We're going to support that and encourage our Healthy Yards pledgers to check it out, but I'm not putting together a marketing plan for it. I just want to explain what promote means, support the promotion of. I'm not promoting it actively.
okay, great. Thank you. Other comments? Do I hear a motion about the minutes? I
With
don't
that-
hear one yet.
With that correction, I move to approve.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we organized the meetings and then our notes along our three main priorities for this year, which are providing cleaner, more reliable energy, strengthen community health, and minimizing waste. So the first one of these is providing cleaner, more reliable energy. And the particular topics are community solar and grid rewards. Lisa, I see you are here. Good to see you. And Lisa from the LAC and the CFTE, Ellen Silver, and Renee, you're part of that. We've all gone in together on the program. Fairly good results. Sue, there you are. So Sue, do you have a record of our signups to date?
I just have what's in the minutes.
Okay.
That's the last update I have.
Yeah, we have it. What we do know is that I believe that the town was successful in meeting the minimum criteria for signups on both programs. Is that the same, Lisa from LAC, is that the same for you guys?
Yeah, we've achieved both. Grid rewards and community solar, we met our minimums.
And do we know about the Village of Mamaroneck? Did you guys get to the minimums on both programs?
We definitely got to the minimum on the, I
Grid
wasn't sure about the solar, but the other one we did get to the minimum on.
Grid rewards.
The grid.
The last report we got, you guys were too short of community solar, so it's possible that was well over a week ago, I think, that we got that report. So it may be that you've surpassed it by now.
Well, I hope so.
Right. Well, let's hope so. Okay, so that's good work by everybody. I think the town, we had at least 25 signups for community solar and at least 35 for grid rewards.
Right, that's what I have.
So great follow through. The community solar program, of course, is still active. So if you know anybody who hasn't signed up, please see whether they're interested, and that would be great if they could sign up. Community solar is the easier sign up of the two. So that would be a great win for the community and a great win for that family. Frank, as long as you were here on this topic, how's everybody doing at the hummocks in terms of the solar? Are they progressing through their testing?
Yeah, I think everything's going well. I haven't gotten a recent update. The thing I was going to report was that it was either last week or the week before that Nancy held a press conference on the community solar, and it was at the Hummocks Apartments, which is an affordable housing complex. And the thing that I thought was really encouraging is that there were several people from the local housing authorities that have voiced great support and enthusiasm for the fact that they were going to be able to get people signed up, and we told them that, or Nancy announced that the goal was 50% of all the subscribers would come from the low and moderate income community. And some of the leaders of the housing authorities questioned that, and they said, no, we're going to get 100%. So I thought that was really very encouraging. And I think that in terms of that, the actual construction, all the panels are up on the Hummocks ice rink, 500 kW of solar for those who, Eric and others who may be new, and Renee or Robin, but it's a great project, and I think it should go live sometime in the June, July time period. They're going through the inspection process now.
Well, that's great. So do you know if either you or Mark Manley have made any progress with the school system on community solar in the last couple of months?
Yeah, we have not. I'm just trying to think about, yeah, we haven't reached out to them again on that recently. I did talk to the folks at Sustainable Westchester, because they have a program that they're involved with that is trying to convince schools to do community solar on an aggregated basis, where they'll bring in one or two contractors and be able to provide, a lower cost solution. But it's the folks at Sustainable Westchester acknowledge that it's not easy, because the schools they move at a sort of a different pace, and they also have certain concerns. There's I guess some question at a lot of schools as to whether they're allowed to lease out their roofs for a private use. So, but I'm glad actually you're asking that question, because it doesn't hurt to continue to prod the school. They're not going to, so far haven't really been allowed us to get directly involved, but it doesn't hurt to remind them.
Nick Zuba, have you run across this in either Long Island or Connecticut about schools and roofs and leasing or not?
No, I mean, I haven't come across that, certainly in my experience working on these kind of projects, but I'm guessing, maybe because of in New York's case, maybe is it just because basically these decisions are guided by New York State and, our education department in this case. It just could be very well some kind of a stipulation that they have, given probably it's New York State run, kind of properties in this case, or just maybe, they just have more guidance over what the districts do. So perhaps it's a question that has to be raised maybe more to the state level.
Well, actually, Mitch, I think to the extent that you're talking to Nancy or anybody else at Sustainable Westchester, I think this would be good for you to bring up to them, because I do think it's one of the things that our school district said was that they were very much looking for other precedents or other school districts that had done this. So we were in the solar developer that we are using for the Hummocks ice rink, Sunlight General, was unable to come up with any examples. But I think if Sustainable Westchester is working with other schools, I think there would be sort of safety in numbers, and there may also be an attorney or one or more who's looked at this leasing question. So that would be my suggestion. Certainly, if I'm talking to them, I'll remind them as well.
Okay, who at Sustainable Westchester have you been talking to on this?
So Leo Wegman, who's
okay.
yeah, well, Leo's now, as you may know, in charge of the solar programs for Sustainable Western. He is very knowledgeable. He's also just a first-class person all around. So I'm very happy that he joined them about a month ago.
Okay, great.
Mitch,
Yes.
the reason the schools can't use the solar for their own power is because they purchase it from
NYPA.
NYPA? So the schools do that as well as the municipality.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they also don't have a tax liability. So, which most solar deals, or all solar deals, a lot of the economics are driven by tax incentives.
Yes, this is in other words, they can't monetize basically, federal tax incentives in this case. There's things like investment tax credit and other depreciation benefits.
So it makes it a little complicated for teaching the students, right?
Well, I think, I mean, it shouldn't really.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
And it
should-
works because of the tax credits and because the power is so cheap from a
Right.
different source.
And we shouldn't spend too much more time on this, but the one thing one limitation from my perspective is that in California, you're seeing, they're ahead of New York State in terms of looking at net zero energy, and they have lots of school districts that have pursued this and actually have achieved it. And, in order to do that, you need to be able to produce enough solar. First of all, you make the building super efficient, and then you produce enough solar to provide the necessary electric. And so if you're doing a community solar project, you're providing the electric to the grid, so you're not really getting that benefit. But I think that's doing net zero is very hard, and so it's in some ways, if you do community solar, you're foreclosing that opportunity. But I think it's in my mind, if you can get them to put solar on the schools, I think it would be a good thing.
There's a lot of work though, and then we can move on. But there's a lot of work being done on making the schools net zero that we're hoping will be used cross country. So, I mean, what would be better than to be able to make our schools net zero, right?
Yeah, that would be very cool. I've mentioned it.
We can move on and talk about this separately.
Okay, good. Hey, Frank, one last thing.
Yeah.
And I see that Jeffrey King has joined us. Good evening, Jeffrey. Wave, so everybody knows you're here.
Good evening, everyone.
So, so Frank, now that the town has been successful on the Hummocks rink, what about Maxwell Avenue? Are there any appropriately oriented roofs down there that we could go for phase 2?
Where's Steve Altieri when you need him? He's, I think my recollection is that those roofs are pretty small. I mean, I'd have to look at it again. The nice thing about obviously the Hummocks is it was a big roof. And when you start looking at, smaller roofs, it becomes, less attractive for the solar developers, et cetera. But I'd be happy to you just do an aerial scan. I know that the developer who worked with us on the ice rink is happy to look at just about anything. So it's worth asking. Okay, great. Well, yeah, have them take a look at Maxwell Avenue and see if they think there's a possibility. That'd be great.
Yeah, I think just to add 2 cents, I think that I know Steve had looked at it previously, and that was the comment that came back was that the square footage wasn't appropriate, but obviously technology is changing, so perhaps it is worth a second look. So if developer is willing to do that, Frank, then I would say then by all means, you can have them take a look at the highway department's roof. Okay.
And Frank, just so you know, when we put panels on our house, I went to like 3 different companies, and they all said no, too many trees, too small. And then we found someone who was local who installed them, and we get tons and tons of power, and we pay for our house $150 a month in electricity, which used to be $700. So there's also like, there's not an exact science to this either. Just keep in mind, like there's different people will have different, and we've proved to generate power, even though we got a lot of no's. So keep that in mind too.
That's good to keep in mind.
Knowing nothing about the footprint of the site, unfortunately, but just to, of course, add my 2 cents, let's also always explore maybe if there's other ways of deploying the solar as well, whether it be ground mount, a carport, any kind of those other types of methods. Let's explore any and all options.
And the walls.
Yeah.
That's right. Power walls.
Walls, Michelle?
Exterior walls,
Tiles.
all over Amsterdam.
Cool.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on. We actually have quite a few things this evening in Strengthen Community Health.
Hey, Mitch, if I could just selfishly, I did have a couple of things to add on this general topic, which was I did take a look at your smart homes
Yes.
emails, and I don't know if you want to spend a couple minutes. I'm happy to put that off until next month as well.
Yeah,
So,
let's put that off until next month.
okay.
Okay, but thank you. So we have 4 or 5 things under Strengthen Community Health, and one of the people we have, 2 of the people we have here, Ellen Martin has been a regular. Haven't seen you for a couple of months, but we have someone I think who's joining us for the first time, Katie Ramita. Hi, Katie. You two are going to give us an update on healthy clubs, but before you do that, Katie, can you I forgot to introduce you earlier. Can you give us a brief introduction to yourself and your interests?
Sure. My name is Katie Ramita. I am a resident of Mamaroneck and am very interested in sustainability and appreciate being able to be on this call and get some feedback from all of you on some of the things that Ellen and I and other people on this call, I see a lot of familiar faces, are doing to help make some of the clubs in the area more sustainable.
Great. Okay. So Katie and Ellen, please tell us what's happening.
Okay.
Do you want to go for it?
Well, I was going to ask if it was possible to share some slides.
Oh, yes. We love slides.
Oh, good. I always find it hard to talk while the slides are on because then I can't see all of you. But hopefully you can see my slides that Ellen and I put together. And also, I should just back up. I assume that you all know about healthy clubs generally, since Mitch and Lisa McDonald and other people really got it started last year. Is that true that there's already existing background?
I think you could give us a 1 or 2 minute introduction. It would be well worth it.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing that just for a second because otherwise I get too distracted by not being able to see people. But it's my understanding, and Mitch and Lisa, please jump in if I get this wrong. But Mitch and Lisa and some other people started healthy clubs about a year and a half ago, maybe, when the US Open was coming to Winged Foot, and efforts were being put into place to encourage Winged Foot to have more sustainable things associated with the US Open, like doing composting and other things. And when that happened, the idea was, well, if Winged Foot has to do some of these sustainable efforts, why wouldn't we build on the momentum and try to get other clubs in the area to also do a similar thing, right? There's like so much good momentum happening. We could sort of all act together and get more to happen. And out of that, the idea for this Healthy Clubs initiative was born, where different clubs in the area got together and sort of banded together and said, great, like let's all learn from each other. Let's figure out what each of our clubs are doing well and copy them at the various clubs. Is that a good intro?
Yes, and also I think we were also, I'll just chime in really quickly. You're doing a great job there, Katie, by the way. Is just that there wasn't a lot of sharing. I mean, I think we realized that pretty quickly that, we were all working very independently. And so as we move forward, it's just really nice to know that we can piggyback on each other and support each other, and always looking for more people to get involved.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So just a quick update on where we are now. So we, once COVID happened, the meeting sort of stopped for a while, but we regrouped this spring and have had 2 or 3 meetings, I think. And right now we have 6 clubs actively participating, which you can see listed. We've also actually connected with staff from one club Bonnie Breyer, where we don't have a member necessarily on our committee, but the assistant manager there has been really helpful and engaged, which has been fantastic. And as Ellen mentioned, we would love to have more members and more integration with more clubs so that we can share more ideas and get more ideas from what other clubs might be doing as well. So if any of you have connections at any of the clubs that we've listed or any other clubs in the area, we would love to connect. Okay, and what we did this spring is we had all our participating club members fill out a survey with the intention of identifying what the clubs are currently doing, so that we had sort of a baseline measurement of where we are. And we also asked people what their priorities are. We wanted to really understand what is motivating people to be involved in these efforts and what their goals are so that we can sort of focus on those top priorities and move forward with what matters most to people. And out of that, we came up with this mission to reduce the impacts of clubs' actions on climate change for future generations by pooling knowledge and action across leading beach, yacht, and golf clubs in Southern Westchester. And the top 5 priorities are to reduce single-use plastic, to reduce food waste, both by, well, first actually by donating leftover food through county harvest, and then composting what cannot be eaten, improving energy use, improving recycling practices, and spreading awareness among membership. And that the spreading awareness among membership means not only changing the practices at the clubs themselves, which of course we want to do, but also the clubs themselves are these communities of hundreds of people. So can we also share information with them and influence the actions that they take in their own day-to-day lives? So those are the priorities. And then in terms of sort of baseline where the clubs are currently, the single-use plastic, all the clubs have actually reduced single-use plastic, but are not perfect by any stretch. The outdoor drinks are really where I think some of the clubs are not doing as well, but some of the clubs are leading the way. The Shore Club and the Yacht Club specifically have taken some good action. In terms of food scrap recycling, composting, and also the donating to the through county harvest, some clubs are donating through county harvest, but no clubs are regularly composting. The Yacht Club has composted during Junior Race Week, and OBC, Oriented Beach Club, is looking to copy what the Yacht Club has done at some outdoor events. But I think this is one of the areas where if we could get like one club to really do this and prove, I think like somebody else was saying about the school system wanting to see that another school system is using these solar panels, it's very similar. You know, all the clubs want to know like, well, who else is doing it? So hopefully we can get a club to sort of take the plunge and do it. In terms of improving energy use, we want to connect with Sustainable Westchester and see if we can get some of the other clubs to switch over to community choice aggregation. We have 2 clubs that do currently participate. And then improving recycling practices. I think all clubs do recycle. There's just questions about how well it's done, how consistently it's done. You can imagine. And then I think we can all learn from each other in terms of how to spread awareness among membership. You know, there could be opportunities for like fun events to talk about oysters, for example, that would have sort of a social component, but also an educational component. And in addition to all those things, we are also spreading information about healthy yards, the leaf blower changes, laws, water usage. Ellen and I actually talked to somebody from Blink today to get information on EV charging stations and the rebates that exist to sort of spread some of that information out to the clubs. And that
Go back to the your final slide, please.
Sure.
So first of all, thank you for that update. It's terrific. A couple of things. Ellen and Katie, send me an email tomorrow so that I can connect you with somebody at Wingfoot. They've been doing food waste, food scrap recycling for more than a decade. And so I'm going to introduce you to the club member who knows a fair amount about it. I can also probably dig up the head chef's card for you. And it might be, I think it's time for a direct approach to them on that. In terms of energy use, in addition to CCA, there are a couple of other programs. There's the EV chargers program, which Katie, you've mentioned. Denise Dunn, who is a collab member. I'm not sure, maybe Sue, you can send Katie and Ellen Denise's email. She can help you with the clubs, with the EV charger program. She's an expert at this. She did the towns. She really helped the town on our first round of EV chargers. And Denise has volunteered to help sit down with clubs with you all when you have a fish that looks like they might be on the hook. Another program that the clubs could pretty much all sign up for immediately is community solar. As long as they have a Con Ed account,
Excuse me, Mitch.
they're pretty much guaranteed being able to sign up.
Mitch, actually, I spoke with Claire about that, and she really was preferring that we push that out to the houses of worship. She didn't really want it to go to social clubs. I think the idea is they use so much electricity and they're trying to save community solar. There's kind of like a finite number of people who can enroll. So they prefer it that we encourage other groups to do community
Yeah,
solar.
I understand that, but they don't get to make that decision.
Okay.
And that definitely not at Claire's level. So,
okay.
But good to know. So I'm sorry, other people, I should stop talking.
So wait, so Mitch, that information will be forwarded to us?
I'm sorry, say it again.
So the information, like Denise Dunn, her
Yeah,
contact.
if you contact Denise and tell her what you guys are doing or what you're interested in, I think the conversation will flow from there.
Got it. And then just one last thing that I want to add is that Suburban, which is one of the waste removal companies in the area, they have offered to, they compost, they do compost pickup, and they've offered special deals if more, the more clubs that participate. So kind of good to know, just to get the clubs engaged.
Right, because the clubs don't have their garbage picked up by the commission, is that right? They have private haulers?
They have private haulers, exactly. So one of the private haulers is Suburban, and that particular one offers compost pickup. So for instance, like Waste Management does not.
Right.
So that's where, it's just encouraging, just getting people in the group or just encouraging their particular clubs to consider Suburban.
Right. So Mark Kramer, I think you're here somewhere. How might that relate to the fact that Suburban actually has that compost drop-off area in the village of Mamaroneck?
Well, two things. Westchester County, as you know, has a program to help the towns. They are not presently accepting industrial or commercial in the discounted program, to my knowledge, unless something's changed in the last 4 or 5 months. So I won't speak for the village of Mamaroneck, but the town of Mamaroneck, Larchmont, does not accept compost from industrial facilities or restaurants at this point. So because then we have to haul it or have Suburban pay for it. So I don't know the story in the village of Mamaroneck. I'd defer to Ellen Silver.
Okay. Good.
So that means that Suburban would have to somehow get it much further. There'd be no place locally for them to
Right.
store it. That's
Yeah,
what
I
you're
think
saying.
they would be hauling it north. I mean, they would, yeah.
Yeah, so if you can, Ellen and Katie, if you can get an idea of what Suburban is interested to charge and work with Mark Kramer and some of the other folks like Arlene or Karen when she comes back from Malaysia, they'll be able to help you to understand the economics and whether this is actually a good deal or whether there might be a better alternative.
The other thing I'll say is Karen and I had already spoken very early with the county about whether they'd consider religious institutions, schools, etc., as part of their discount. And the initial answer was no.
Oh.
Yeah.
So pressure there would be good on the county executive.
So we did get a rough price quote from Suburban, but it didn't seem like there was really any other great option. I mean, I know some landscaping companies are willing to haul small amounts, but you know, if it was going to be a regular, larger amount, it seemed like Suburban was the only option. Is that not true?
Don't know.
Well, I think that when the town looked into this a couple of years ago, Suburban was the least expensive option, but times may have changed. Okay. All right. Well, actually, since Lisa brought up that point about houses of worship, that's actually our next item on the agenda. So, George.
Hey, Mitch, just, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Health clubs, I had a couple of things I want to just pass along to Ellen and Katie. One is when you're talking to the health clubs, if you don't know, you should bear in mind that there's a new New York State law that's going to be coming into effect that will require any organization that generates a certain amount of waste every year. I think it's like 150 tons per year. I can't remember. I can send you what that metric is. But they're going to be required to separate out their food scraps and send it to separate, food scrap composting area. So and if they don't, they're going to be penalized. So it's something that I'll send it to you, but I think it would be a nice way to kind of help them get up to speed on that. And then connected to that, I spent some time looking at a company that has food dryers. And the idea is that if the food, any waste is taken away by tonnage. And if you can dry food waste, you're taking the water out of it, which is basically 90% of the waste. And so then you're hauling something that has much less waste or much less weight. And so I went through the economics of this group that was selling them, and it didn't make economic sense. But I do know that Wingfoot has one of these dryers. So if you're going to Wingfoot, it'd be interesting to know which dryer they have and what their experience has been. Because I think just sort of conceptually, it's an interesting idea that you can take and, you use this dried food waste for composting. It doesn't have, I guess, as much of the nutritional value that a sort of a more traditional composting would have, but I think it definitely has a place in the ecosystem. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you guys to keep in mind is that if you're talking to these clubs, if they would ever be willing to share their energy costs, it's really be very helpful. And all they really need to do is just be willing to give you the Con Edison, allow you to look at their Con Edison bill online. So if they give you the account number, I can look it up, Nick can look it up. And what that allows you to do is very quickly, you can, and then you get the square footage of the buildings. You can really quickly get a sense of how much energy they're using. And it allows you to what they call benchmark. And once you see, then you can kind of look at clubs, you can compare. And if something seems very high, then, we're happy to kind of help out and say, where might these high numbers be coming from? So it's a very simple thing to do. And any of my clients, that's the first thing I ask them for is, can you just give me your energy bills or they access to your energy bills, and they would print out 12 or 24 months of the energy bills, and you can kind of quickly zero in on, whether there's any opportunity for saving. So anyhow, those were.
Oh, that's incredibly helpful, all three of those. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
One more.
Incredibly. I mean, we
I
will
have one
follow
more.
up.
One more.
Go ahead.
Just one more?
Yeah, just one more for me in this case. Mitch, I think this could be a great opportunity as well for exploring CPACE with them as well.
Yes.
So I think, so just for Katie and Ellen, for your edification, CPACE is a financing mechanism that helps commercial property owners make energy saving improvements right on site, in which case then is secured to the property in this case as the investment. And so if they have an appetite, these clubs, to want to do their own energy saving improvements on site, and they want to find a way to finance it as opposed to paying out of pocket, through other means and other ways to basically go and, pay for those improvements, this is also something that, is worth exploring in this case as another method to pay for those kinds of improvements, because Mamaroneck has been exploring opting into New York's CPACE program. And so basically once we would be opted into that program, these kind of investments would be allowed to be done in this into this community and helping these kind of properties. So that's also another resource to keep in mind.
Thank you. So just so, because I've never heard of this before, is it like literally the letter C and then PA? How do you spell it? PA.
Yeah, exactly. This is right. C and PACE.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All caps. Michelle.
I'm going to make this really quick. It's possible that you've covered it at another time, but under the healthy yards for the clubs, is there any discussion about not using pesticides or herbicides on their property?
Yes.
So that's all taken care of.
Yeah.
They've all agreed to that.
I wouldn't say it's taken care of, but it's certainly been brought up and it's been brought to their attention for sure. And we will continue with that.
Okay. I didn't see it on the sheets.
Yeah, I mean, most of these clubs just, they align the short, I mean, the sound. So absolutely. Needs to be.
So Ellen, maybe not tonight, and Katie, but maybe a little bit more of a club by club download of information that you can share with our Healthy Yards team as to what you perceive each of the clubs currently doing in the way of healthy or not so healthy yard work and care. That might be great because it's in their interests, it's in our kids' interests, and it's in our collective interest, everybody on this call. So there are a lot of people who want to help them with this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And although Sue Oderno just went off camera and came back on, Sue, you just sent me an email about one of the things Frank was talking about, the new New York State law. You're muted.
Yeah, I had gotten a reminder email today, so I just forwarded it on to all of you.
So there's a webinar coming up on this new law about large-scale food waste producers needing to separate.
Yes, tomorrow between 10 and 11:30, and in the email you can actually register for it.
So Ellen and Katie, if either of you have any time, you can go to the webinar and become our experts.
I would be privileged. We would be privileged. Thank you.
Okay, well, stick around because what you're doing is directly going to relate to our next topic. George, would you like to, in any order you'd like, introduce Larchmont Temple? I think I saw one of the members. There you are, Paul. And then our friends.
Eric.
Yes.
All right, I'm getting, as we're discussing things here, I'm getting more and more excited about the particular people who I invited for today's meeting, and Mitch agreed. We've been talking about healthy yards, of course, and then the question comes up, what about healthy religious institutions? And I'm a member of Larchmont Temple, but it's only recently that I've made a connection with Paul Katzenstein, who is here and can tell us about healthy religious institutions. Paul, you're here.
I'm here.
It's yours.
Great. Thank you, George, and thank you, Collab, for having me on the meeting as well. Yeah, I'm going to give you a little bit of history and background. Back around 4 or 5 years ago, several folks at Larchmont Temple got together to start essentially a green and sustainability team. It's comprised of Marlene Colbert, who many may know, Bonnie Weinbach, and the Temple's executive director, Jane Sable Friedman. And among the things we tackled, and we really tackled first, was waste reduction. And we had a great example to model ourselves after at Westchester Reformed Temple in Scarsdale, which had already done a fantastic job of getting their congregation and all of their facilities set up for waste reduction. So among the major things we did was try to encourage separation of waste, composting. We had a very helpful and cooperative staff that's continued to be so in helping move all the waste into the proper directions and so forth too. And we had this happen throughout the entire facility as well as our school, and we've got a pretty good sized day school program as well. I'd say some of the major things we did were to set bins all around the facilities, obviously with signs on waste use, composting here, recycled plastic here, paper here, trash here, and so forth. And then providing education to everybody on really how to sort things out. It really takes some time to set the behavioral change and get people comfortable with doing that. Another thing we did also was to change the sourcing of a lot of the materials that were used, obviously from throwaway plastics and other stuff to compostable materials. I think there's still more that we can do. I'd like to see reusable, china rather than even compostable plates and so forth. But that's where we are now. And then the third thing was really starting, and it was a challenge, roughly again 4 or 5 years ago, in finding how to get the composting hauled. But we actually did end up with a landscaper, and we've actually then, that landscaper is now working with several other houses of worship. The temple has done several other things as well in the last probably, again, 4 or 5 years. Done some significant work in replacing lighting with LED upgrades, replacing windows. We've been looking at solar, not sure yet what the plan's going to be there, but still it's on the table for consideration. And then about 2 years ago, several other Larchmont houses of worship approached us. We all kind of got together, and I know a couple of members of this committee, including Libby, and looking around too, Lisa's on as well, are members of the houses of worship Green, How Green. And basically we've been looking to share best practices, trying to have other houses of worship hopefully benefit from some of the same things that the temple and also before us Westchester Reformed Temple had forged ahead with, and also providing educational programs to the community. So all in all, been very effective. I was happy to hear the report earlier on the healthy clubs as well. My wife has been part of that too, so we're happy to see that spreading too. And the challenge now seems to be figuring out how to get better synergies on some of the composting pickups. So that's a little brief background. Hopefully it helps.
Oh, thank you, Paul. Before we go on, George, if it's all right, Paul, there are a couple things that you guys have been leaders in doing that might really help our club's team. So one of them is, as you described it, it's been kind of a 4 to 5 year process of starting, progressing, and even now you're still seeing more things and different things to do. Is there any way that as kind of a case study, you might be able to gather some notes together and then kind of as a year by year or whatever it is, diary of what you could accomplish and what you couldn't and that sort of thing that might be shareable with others?
Well, I'd be trying to reconstruct history and think back to where we were a couple of years ago. I can summarize that pretty easily now. If you wanted in notes, I'm sure I can put something together as well. But I would basically say, the first steps really were to plan out the steps to get the bins and the basic program and science in place. And then we tried to get some, representative of our group to every group's major meetings and give them a little bit of an overview and education. And I think that's basically an approach that would work as well with clubs too. It's really a matter of getting in front of people, explaining what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're asking them to change their behavior a little bit and what the impact will be.
Okay, that's great. And then
Can I
in
add one
terms of
thing?
How Green, is there
can I add
something
one
you
thing?
can share with the rest of us as to who's part of it, what it does, how often you communicate and all of that?
I think Lisa just was going to add something.
Well, I was just going to add, Paul, that I think things really took off with Sustainable Sundays. We all came together with food scrap recycling as the first piece, but then we got more awareness and I think more support from our houses of worship once there were these events to look forward to. And so, everything really was on pause, I would say. I mean, not totally, because you guys did an incredible Zoom Sustainable Sunday. Like, it was really amazing. But people were not in the houses of worship, so there wasn't the food scrap collecting. So a lot of the other things were on pause. So this was a really good opportunity to continue with making the group visible, on Zoom. So I mean, I think that healthy clubs, it would be great, especially if you're looking for more members from the clubs, if there could be some sort of a parallel, Sustainable Sundays, or maybe not Sundays, but like a wine night with somebody from Save the Sound coming and talking to the clubs. I think that's a great way to get more members involved, more visibility. That might be a good way to.
Yep, just a little bit more too, and from the program, again, with the educational program that the Houses of Worship, How Green, has been sponsoring and holding, we've been rotating around, and we held once we were able to do in-person sessions, we did a Zoom meeting back in January. The speakers we were able to pull together included actually Marlene Colbert's daughter, Elizabeth Colbert, who's a terrific author, and spoke about some of her work in looking at really global issues. We also had another congregant, Adam, and I'm blanking on Adam's last name, who actually was a chef at Blue Hill and now has started a new business making products out of unused food byproduct, let's say. In fact, they've just been putting out some beverages that's taking advantage of, I think it's whey, that's a byproduct of yogurt production. So some interesting topics. I totally agree, Lisa. Yeah, I mean, getting those kinds of things in front of clubs as well just kind of helps, foster more interest and hopefully more participation in people to think about, ways to drive more sustainability.
Mitch, can I add one thing about How Green? We had a meeting on Monday, and one of the things that we talked about that we would like to do is extend the number of houses of worship who are involved. We think that we can find all kinds of synergies. So people who are on this call right now, who are in a house of worship, who is not currently a member of How Green, we would be very happy to hear from you. I can speak for myself and Sasha Nar, but others can speak for themselves if they want to receive those emails. We would love to have you join the group. And one other important thing is that there is a big initiative in our group to try to bring some of the native gardens and plants. I'm not going to speak about it specifically. Others can if they want on this call or at another time. But this is becoming a very important thing with the houses of worship. We want to try to bring native plants in order to encourage the ecosystems and replace some of the land that's lost to development with native trees, native plants, and native shrubs on the property of our houses of worship. There are already some native plants at clearly see. We're going to try to label those for better understanding, but I know that others have projects that are even more ambitious to put in native plant gardens.
Okay, great. All right, George, step 2.
Well, here we go again. As probably everybody knows, I've been working to reduce the gas blowers. Has been a hobby horse of mine for years, and people are always asking, well, what about mowers? And my answer generally is, well, just one thing at a time. And then I discovered recently at a meeting of the Larchmont Garden Civic Association that there is such a thing as a robo mower. And the robo mower works on electricity, I've learned. There's no noise. There's no gas coming out. There's no destruction of the ground, no wires. And the people who are dealing with this right now came to our meeting, and Heidi and Eric Horn. I thought that it would be very useful if they came to this meeting and told us what you're doing. And also beyond that, I know that the two of you are working on what we would call healthy yards. And perhaps you can spend a few minutes telling us about the mowers in the yards. It's yours.
Sure. Thank you, George. And thank you for having us in the meeting. So maybe just quickly some background. So we are from Norway. We came to US about 6 years ago. We moved to Old Greenwich, where we're still located. And when we moved to Old Greenwich, we were just shocked about how, landscaping was conducted with all these, big machines, trucks, noise, and emissions. Back home in Norway, we were used to robotic lawnmowers. So that was very surprising. You think the world is global and everyone has everything, but certainly robotic lawnmowers had not come to Connecticut or New York yet. So then we quickly figured out we were not going to have these loud noisy machines. So we tried to find a robotic lawnmower or tried to have someone to install it. That turned out to be very difficult. So we did it by ourselves, and then we figured out we'll actually make this as a mission to provide robotic lawnmowers to our street and close community to try to convert at least our community from the harmful emissions and noise to more eco-friendly landscaping services. So we hired a couple of people. We set up a green landscaping company with focus on robotic lawnmowers. And all of a sudden that turned out to, so this is now 3 years ago, and it turned out to be, a lot more. So now we have had quite few, or we have a full-scale landscaping company with these robotic lawnmowers, which are really, I guess, the future, the smart and green future. So maybe if I can share a video, which is 1 minute, I guess these mowers might not be familiar to you. So before we go more into details, it might help if we can just show a quick video from our customers, which we made a couple of years ago.
Sure, please.
Yeah. So, so this is really if you know, in terms of so what we're doing, we're really trying to just have, you know, speed up the process of moving away from, I guess, the old traditional way of doing mowing, trimming, blowing. And you know, when you soon have autonomous cars, there is no reason for why you would have having people to first use also gasoline to transport a big machine to your mower and then sit on it and ride on it. So these robotic mowers are great. They fit for any type of yard. Back in Europe, they're used on golf courses, public parks, so they can really do any type of size. And yes, they're noise-free, easy to set up, and you will always have a, you know, nice trimmed lawn. 5%. So yeah. So I don't know if you have any, you know, questions or anything, but it's really the future, I would say, of mowing, and especially if you want to try to you know, provide some type of greener landscaping. That's a great option to consider for yeah, for some of your organizations or clubs, or you know, healthy clubs. Yeah.
I don't have a question, but I'd like to point out I visited the Horns several weeks ago and watched this little guy walking around. It gets programmed, and obviously I'm very excited about it. And Eric's asked me, would I like to see it park? And I said, sure. And he walked up to the little guy who should have a name. I don't know if you have a name for it. Poked around a little bit, and off it went, and it parked itself. It went to its parking place, and I just love it.
Yeah, it's really you can look at it as a Roomba, just for you know, cutting lawns. So they are very smart.
Can I ask you a technical question? In your video, you didn't show grass coming out to the side as a mulching mower. How high can the grass be and it still be cut? Can it be run in wet grass or whatever?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So firstly, the whole point of them is to just nibble the grass every day. So the very small clippings, they go down to the soil and works as a kind of natural fertilizer, as opposed to, you know, traditional mowing. When you go out once a week, the grass is normally too tall, and then you cut too much off the grass blade, which distresses the grass, and you need just more water. And to your question, how tall, it depends really which mower you chooses, but the tall grass cutters we have, they go up to 3.7 inches. So that should really cover most of the, you know, organic lawns that should be at that taller grass length. Yeah.
What about mulch mowing and like for leaves in the fall?
Yeah, it's not a great, you know, if it can cut it, but it's not a great option for mulching leaves. Then you should rather have a, you know, electric actual, you know, push mower or a ride mower or something else. It's really from, you know, from April, May till end of October. And then for most of our customers, we just take them off their properties, end of season, we store them, and then we put them back. So we really try to just, you know, simplify the process in order to promote more people to become green and have a healthy yard.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating idea, Eric, what you've got going here. I think it's really innovative in this case. Let me go one step further though. I want to ask you this question. So then with these battery powered mowers in this case, what is the electric source that they're typically being charged by? Is it all renewable, or is it going to be just merely power supplied from the grid?
It's so whatever, you know, the home is what is connected to. Of course, we hope one day to have a robotic mower with a solar panel. Nothing would be better. But yeah, so now it's just we plug the charging station into the outdoor outlet, any regular outlet, and then wherever the home gets electricity from. Of course, the best case if it's renewable electricity. But yeah, no, that's where that's the source.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you actually you sell these things right to the customers in this case, and they just have it for themselves in this case. I was under the impression maybe this was a fleet of these mowers you had yourselves. You just come, you do the job, and then you go back, you take back the mower. I misunderstood. Thank you.
Yeah. So well, correct. So they have them throughout the season, but most clients are just it's a subscription package type of thing. So they just pay a X amount every month. We come beginning of season, put them out, we monitor them and maintain them throughout the season. End of season, we pick up the unit, store it, and then we come next season. Yeah, so that's the we figured that's the best way for the homeowner to do it.
Eric, can you also talk about any other kinds of electrical battery powered equipment from landscaping or yard work?
Yes, love this. Yeah, so we started with robotic mowers, but then we quickly figured out that most homeowners need all of other, you know, type of lawn care services. So that's when we became a full landscaping company with only battery tools. So we have our team comes out with you know, battery weed whacker or a battery leaf blower. So it's really just to yeah, provide that full green package. As you know, most homeowners they need the full package. So if you really need to provide the whole thing for it to work. Otherwise, they would need to have, you know, multiple landscaping companies doing different things, and I don't think that's a great solution.
Thank you.
And really, if you look at the statistics, so I'm sure many of you already know, but it's estimated that 5% of the air pollution in the nation comes from trimming, blowing, and mowing. So to push this industry to become more green it is a significant part of the whole equation.
Wow, terrific.
Fantastic.
Thank you. So Eric and Heidi, if you can send your information to Sue, she will be able to send it around to all of us. George, thank you for bringing these two terrific subjects to us this evening. I'm thinking, George, maybe you can, afterward, talk to Eric and Heidi about this. It might be good to organize a demonstration of their Eric and Heidi's products someplace that might be a town facility that might have some grass.
I think that's an excellent idea. And as Eric can correct me if I'm wrong, but this particular mower wouldn't work on my property because I've got hills and I've got a lot of rocks, and my property isn't that large. I think it would work best on relatively large open properties like the town property.
Town center.
Well, yes, absolutely. So I think that demonstration on one of the town properties would be terrific.
Yeah. No, we'd love to do demonstrations, and we can, you know, provide some units to the town, or, you know, we'd love to, you know, promote the transition. So anything we can do.
Okay, so perhaps what you could do, we're hoping that our June meeting will actually be outside, and one of the locations is Memorial Park. Another one is the swimming pool by our solar farm at Hummocks. both of them have lawn areas that aren't too steep. The date will be June 11th. So George, if you can help by keeping track with Sue as to where we're likely to hold our meeting, to see whether there might be some adjacent grass that could use some robo mowing, that might be a really good intersection.
Mitch, you're full of great ideas. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, well, let's move on to another one of not my ideas. Joe Liberti and his Okra students are here.
Did you want me to jump?
No, after this one.
Okay, perfect.
So Joe and the students have been doing an amazing job over the last few weeks in refining the app, in getting it beta tested and making adjustments. We sent some information around, excuse me, Friday night. Some of you have commented already, which we thank you for. Joe, I'm going to turn things over to you just to show everybody where we are this evening. Before you get started, what I do want to say is that although we've all originally hoped that we would get the launch event for the app this coming Friday, the 15th, for a couple of reasons, we think we'd like to postpone a few days into middle next week. One of those is that we would really like the town to partner with the high school in doing a joint press release for the launching of the app. And Sue, I know you guys have been very busy, but this is something we should try to find some time to talk about tomorrow. The other reason is that in going a last round of getting the feedback from the focus group and the beta testers, and then trying to tune up the app for launch, there are a few more additions and adjustments than we originally thought. So a little bit of a postponement might be good. But Joe, over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, and thanks for that sort of the introduction / context. So the students pushed out the app to their beta test group. They had about I think 37 people signed up, 35 who were part of the group. I think maybe it makes sense to have Alex share his screen so we can just begin to look at the demographics of the beta test group, and then eventually sort of hand off to the students, and they'll kind of walk through some of this. So if Alex, if you could just go to that next slide and hold on that for a minute. Great. So one thing the students did is they wanted to make sure that the beta test group reflected as closely as possible the demographics of the town of Mamaroneck. So you'll see here in the box to the left, those are the 2019 U.S. Census numbers. In 2019, so that's from the American Community Survey. That's a random sample that's done on the off years. And so you can see that if you look at the graphs at the bottom and to the right, you'll see that for the most part, when it comes to gender, race, ethnicity, the beta test group is pretty close to the demographics of Mamaroneck. The one difference that the students did note, and I think that's important, and that is the beta test group was definitely overrepresented in the age group 45 to 64. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind as we look at some of this data. From that feedback, and this is, I'll let Alex and Ryan take over in a minute here. From the feedback from the beta test group, there were some significant changes made, but mostly just in terms of layout and visuals, which they can eventually share the updated version. But just to go back to, again, what Mitch said, there's a lot of work well, I shouldn't say, there's a fair amount of work to be done in terms of making final edits. But students are working hard. We have support, obviously, from myself as well as our ed tech teacher, Mr. Samatano. So we're pretty confident at this point that all those changes can be made by mid next week. So Alex, why don't you and Ryan go ahead to just kind of run through those next couple slides, and just so the collab have some sense of some of the feedback that you got from the beta test group.
Okay, sounds good. So basically, we've just put together some highlights from the form that we sent out to everyone. So I'll just go through it and kind of show everyone the feedback that we've received so far. So this slide just basically on a general aspect, the content. So as you can see, the content, everyone sounded pretty much very resourceful. And there was one participant who I think you'll see on almost every slide that there's always one on the far left side. And that's just one specific person who I think had some difficulties with the app. So I think it's fair to say that we can omit that one person because I think they had some difficulties. So, but overall, the content aside the app seems very promising. And then this next slide is just more specific of each subtopic that people found resourceful. So you can see the popular ones seem to be the water capture reuse, low impact gardens, and then the food one, which is this is more just interesting to see which ones people were using the most. And these, I'm not sure how significant this is, but these are the 3 top ones when you list them out, which could just draw more popularity just because they're at the top. Then next we have how visually easy it was to navigate. And last time we presented here, we had actual images, but we'll show you guys the app after, and we've made a change to more icons that are more like logo-like that we believe, and I'll show you later in the data that it seems that they were easier and more helpful for the users to navigate. So you can just see that, again, the app seems very, very easy to navigate and pleasing as well. And then again, this is just another one showing that the app is again visually pleasing. Here is again the poll about how people preferred the icons or images to see. It is leaning a bit more in the favor of the icons because we believe, and working with the tech coach at our school, that just kind of gives a more cleaner, and just in long term as well, just gives a more cleaner and simplified look, which I think is, and more modern, which I think is in the long term is better probably. Then next we have just how the take action sections, how people were able to use those, and how realistic the practice mentions were. So obviously the take action sections were pretty much consensus where they were very useful. And then the realistic the practices seems to be more and more split towards the middle, but that could just be due to the limited time that the beta test participants had to enact these practices when they only had a couple weeks, when in reality they've had as much time as they need. And then, so this was an idea that Mitch and Michelle gave us, that they want to incorporate a different logo. So this is just kind of further confirming that I think currently we're working on switching the logo to have something more with the Village of Mamaroneck anyway. So this is saying that the logo, so this is a little bit outdated, this information, just because we're already changing the logo, but this was just to show that the logo does need to be changed and we're working on that anyway. And then next we'll just show you some feedback. I'll let you guys read this yourselves, but it's pretty clear that all these kind of showed that the app was very useful, and there were just some compliments and ideas that people had for the app. But overall, it seems that most people enjoyed the app and were able to utilize it in some regard. And then on the next slide, I'll give everyone a minute just to read these, but we compiled a list of stuff that came up throughout the beta test, through all the comments, and just to see ideas that we can focus on, not ideally before the launch of the app, but just in the future of the app, and just as the app progresses, stuff that we can add and look to improve on. So you can see that most users found the layout functional and the content very helpful. They didn't find that the home screen logo communicated the app's purpose, so that's why I said that we're currently working on creating a new logo that kind of just shows that the town of Mamaroneck and everything, as well as showing the actual purpose of the app. There was a lot of ideas for some sort of notifications or newsletter, which the collaborative will decide about, just to kind of get people updated about the new content coming to the app, as well as the just get people back on the app. And there's ideas about preventing links and working more with local vendors in the community just to kind of help promote the initiatives. And if people are buying, for example, native plants, send them to local nurseries or just places where they can actually go out and get this stuff. And then again, they talked about working with the school to help do kind of promotion of the app once we actually push it out. So that's what we're kind of thinking about. That was because just get more people involved in the app. And we were thinking about adding more resources to the additional resource section, which is something that will come with more time just because we didn't have enough time or links just to kind of, which I think is just something that will, as we continue to improve the app, more links will just be filled in. So if there's any questions now, but I will then go in and show you guys the changes that we have made to the app since the last time we presented.
Great, keep going.
All right. So as you can see, we've changed from originally, which were pictures, to more logos and kind of switched up the format of the app a little bit. And I just like to stress again that this is a work in progress, and we're still currently making changes that have been suggested by you guys to collab as well as the beta test group. So this is subject to change, but this is kind of like the general layout that we're looking at right now. And I'll just go into each section, just kind of showing where we're at with everything.
Can I just make an offer to Alex? So if you want to use the Healthy Yards logo as your low impact yards, or I don't remember what if you go back, yeah, low impact lawn and gardens, you'd be welcome to use our logo if you choose to.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that. Thank you.
The same with Love Your Food.
Yeah, I think we did incorporate that into the Love Your Food section.
Yeah, if it's not there yet, we were working on it this morning, so that will be done.
Thank you.
So these are just again, the big changes that we have worked on were kind of the icons were the big changes, as well as switching the About Us section, as well as a calendar section, which will be working with the collaborative so if people who are interested in getting involved, once it is implemented, we'll have upcoming events, meetings, anything that people can actually do to get involved. And then, yeah, so each section just kind of has, there are 3 sections with now different logos or icons instead of the original pictures that we had there.
So you're saying people preferred to focus on an icon rather than a photo?
Yeah, so basically the info from the beta test group and just kind of what we just received feedback from, people found that these logos here, like which you can see the water with like the arrows on it, were easier and kind of were clearer than originally we had images such as this there. And I think those were just kind of, they weren't always the best quality, and they didn't really capture the images best, and they sometimes got cropped weirdly just because that's how the glide works. So it just kind of worked out that the pictures kind of just give a cleaner, more modern, simpler look. And I guess that's what the beta testers found more useful.
And that's consistent. That's consistent, Kevin, with all graphics and all design now. Plus the photographs take up a lot of digital. They're sort of digital resource hogs. But if you think about software and design, the icons are pretty much where it's at.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we were also thinking we could easily, I mean, once you click in, then you want to expand and have more information shown and pictures and things like that. But at the beginning, before they click anything, it would be easier for it to be more condensed and smaller.
And also I'm looking now and I can actually see that I think we have, let me see if I can pull up. The logo looks like it has been changed. So, sorry, this is like not very big for you guys to see, but you can kind of see that that is the Town of Mamaroneck logo with a little leaf on top, just kind of show the green aspect, which I think is much better than the one we've had. So yeah, if you guys are able to see that, I know it's a little small.
Can you put the water capture reuse right below the photo?
The title?
Yeah, that's an option. these are just to use, so that, for example, the picture you see right now that says water capture reuse, this actually represents sort of an intermediary step. The students received some feedback initially with the old version where the words were being cut off when they were overlaid on the picture. So if you had a long string of words, you wouldn't be able to see them all. So what Alex and Ryan and his group did is like, all right, let's take the image and let's overlay the words on top of it and then turn that into a new image. And that way we're guaranteed to make sure that the words are all visible in the image. Now, the one visual downside to that Alex and Ryan and others found is that you end up stylistically with different size font from image to image. So again, it's this where you get into some of the sort of stylistic decisions and consistency from page to page. As June was mentioning, there's been a movement away from the images to these icons because again, there's a consistency you can get page to page. But this is an effort to kind of split the difference between where the app was, which was mostly image based, and bringing in some of the cleaner sort of more user-friendly icons. So that's what you're seeing, sort of really a compromise in terms of design at this point.
I think that the wording on top of the photographs in each category, the subcategories, seems to work out pretty well. Not so much on the landing page, but on the intermediate ones down below, where you have caps. Now go into Love Your Food. This here, these seem to work fine on all the ones I'm looking at. It's the main page, the main landing page for each, where the words are too big. You don't really see the photograph.
And also know that almost all the new all new images that are in now, those have all been carefully checked for resolution quality, so they don't pixelate or not download, which was an issue in the first version.
Yeah, and then there's also lots of options. So like Michelle was saying how sometimes the images are a little small, but there can also be made bigger, just something like this, and then I think the text, one second, can also be made bigger. There's lots of options that we can play around with, and it takes literally 5 seconds just to switch it. So you guys are welcome to, if you have suggestions, so we can make the text a little bigger.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it looks sometimes we just have to play around with it a little bit to just see which ideas look best. It's a little big now, and this idea might look better when you actually go in the app to actually go and make these tiles. Well, this has gotten mixed up, but.
Mitch, I have a general question. I don't know the answer. Is this to cover only the town of Mamaroneck, or should it mention anything with the village of Mamaroneck?
So in the About Us section, first of all, this is a town of Mamaroneck sustainability collaborative thing. But in the About Us section, which we're here, we talked about partnering with the village of Larchmont and the village of Mamaroneck wherever possible. Also in the app, under the low impact lawn and garden care, there is mention of the leaf blower ban that's coming up in the village of Larchmont. So we're primarily focused on what the town is doing, but we're obviously aware of and will mention our colleagues whenever it seems appropriate.
I have a question. This is a super wonderful app and a lot of time and energy went into it. How is it going to be marketed to actually get to people so that they'll look at it?
So I'll speak to that quickly. So we'll be coordinating and organizing a major launch where we'll be able to utilize the schools social media. So parents from elementary to high school will receive an email promoting this. It'll go out on the district's Facebook page, Instagram, all the social media that's available to the district. The students have ability to utilize and leverage that. As Mitch mentioned earlier, we also want to make sure that we coordinate the launch with the town of Mamaroneck, so that we're launching together and promoting together. And then the third thing, and this is something we spoke to Mark Manley about this week, and that is we also want to do promotion through students. So one of the nice things about being a teacher, particularly across multiple programs and courses, I don't just do original civic research and action, but I also teach AP government, and my colleagues who teach other courses. We can and we will utilize students to promote it on their social media platforms. So this is also getting in front of younger residents, who then, of course, can be an important point of contact for parents as well.
I mean, you have a resource here that should be spread to like other schools, other towns in like science teacher meetings, biology teacher meetings, et cetera, as a platform for helping them launch various eco activities. I mean, it's really good.
Yes, we've already received interest from Bedford 2030. I had a chance to mention the app briefly at State Senator Shelley Bayer's environmental forum a couple of weeks ago, and people were quite impressed. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of interest in getting this out around the region. Oops.
So I know the students have AP exams coming up, so I want to be careful of their time. So I'm also looking through the chat and trying to make note of what people have said there. Any other questions? And of course, you can always reach out to Michelle and Mitch with your feedback, and then that always will find its way to me as well and the students. But if there's any other sort of last minute comments or very pointed feedback, that'd be great.
Will you be able to enlarge the type with when you're working with the phone? I wasn't able to do it today.
There are some limitations with this platform. So we're using, this Glide app platform. It's very user friendly, but without user friendly platform comes limitations. You'd have to, in all honesty, I would think you'd have to go through that. If you wanted to enlarge, you'd probably have to go back through your phone, like your phone settings, versus being able to do it through the app.
Okay, so just for everybody's knowledge, we, in addition to some of the work with big picture issues, the icons, the images, the photographs, how the pages work together, we've started to give the Okra team a series of very particular comments about some of the text, which we're going to have a little bit more of that to do in the next couple of days. So please, if anybody has comments as you look through this, just get them to Michelle or I, and then we will collate them and forward them to the Okra team so that we can wrap this up by the middle of next week and get this thing launched.
Thanks for your feedback.
All right, thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you so much,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Great job.
All right, take care.
Okay, we're now historically, as always, behind schedule, but not so horrible. Libby, I think you wanted to mention something very quickly about the Gardens event.
Yes, very quickly, and 2 events actually super quick that would be perfect for that app, but not this year. On June 2nd, Judy Caputo and Ellen Silver and I will be giving another composting talk at the Mamaroneck Library. So people who missed it at the Larchmont Library can tune in. And I would like to talk to you, Mitch, and maybe Sue about promoting that so that members of our community can join in on that. It was originally scheduled for the same night that our Healthy Yards wonderful speaker that June's going to talk about was scheduled for. So I asked the Mamaroneck Library if they could change the date, and they did. So June 2nd at 7 p.m. But what I really wanted to talk about today is the wonderful Westchester Pollinator Garden Tour. Some of you know it is on June 13th. Some people on this call are opening their wonderful Healthy Yards to the public on June 13th from 10 in the morning till 1 or any part thereof. And Kevin and I have been working together with Cindy Olson, and Renee has also joined our team. And I haven't really been putting the team together. People on Healthy Yards have shown a lot of interest. We're working together with them because we're only focused on this garden event, which we didn't schedule. It's a Westchester-wide event, but for the first time this year, we're having a lot of private and public local gardens so that people can see what's being done, you know, in our community, what has been done, the beautiful, you know, trees and shrubs and flowers, or simple yards with a very traditional landscaping, but no chemicals, no pesticides, and no herbicides. So what I wanted to say is we're still taking possibly a few more yards if you know of an absolutely beautiful local yard or garden that the owners might be willing to open for the June 13th tour. You can contact me at my email, epoye@gmail.com. But specifically, we would like to ask if people in the collab would like to volunteer an hour or 2 or 3 on June 13th in the morning, because we will be standing sort of at the entrance to the properties. And in case, you know, we all of a sudden have 10 people, I think usually it's pretty quiet, but we have a lot of excellent hot off the press brochures on Healthy Yards that include lists of landscapers, and Eric's business looks like it could be possibly added to that, which would be wonderful, you know, for next year. But the Healthy Yards out of Bedford 2030, they run the pollinator pathways for Westchester County, and I'm the team leader for the Larchmont Mamaroneck pollinator pathways. And so if anybody wants to volunteer a little bit of their time, this would also, I think, be a very good role for a college student who's home, or a senior who's interested in some volunteer work. It's going to be wonderful to be giving out the brochures and sort of helping the host sort of manage on the day of the tour. The other thing is we will be doing outreach, and June has very thoughtfully agreed to share with us, because we like to share everything, her list of contacts. But if you have venues on social media or other types of venues that you think would be appropriate for publicity for this event, we would like to make sure that people in the local community, most of these properties are in Larchmont and Mamaroneck and the village of Mamaroneck, but also some might be in New Rochelle. There's one in Greenwich, Connecticut, Svetlana, who used to live locally, and now she's up in Greenwich with a very substantial pollinator-friendly property that I, for one, am dying to go up and see. This will appear on a map that'll be online. But we are going to promote it locally so that people who just want to stay local and see what their neighbors are doing will know what the addresses are where they can go and visit these pollinator-friendly Healthy Yards. So any questions about that?
Okay, Libby, thank you. All right. So our last major subject for this evening is our tree team. And at last month's meeting, Arlene and June, Jake, Mark Kramer, Kevin reported on what they've done, the tree canopy white paper, and the positive reception with the board and the desire from the board to get everyone's take on what we should be doing about the next steps. So Arlene, over to you.
Okay, well, as we had mentioned before, the tree team is kind of broken into two branches. One is doing outreach, and one of the things that's happened recently was Kevin, with help from Mark, but Kevin's done a wonderful job. We've collected all of these small, can't call them saplings, seedlings perhaps, from Arbor Day Foundation, and we've had a tree giveaway, and that worked out really well. I think that worked out really well. We had signups first at Compost Day and at the Earth Day event, and then Kevin has given quite a few away at the farmers market. So it's been really very successful, and people are very eager to take them and to plant trees. So that's worked out really well. And then I'm going to turn this over to Robert and Jake, who have been really working very diligently on updating our tree code. And, you know, and I have to say, to their credit, it's not just kind of writing it up. It's really taking each point and deliberating over each detail. We've looked at other tree codes. We're continuing to do that from other municipalities, and getting ideas from what worked, what they've included. So I'm going to give it to Jake and to Robert. I don't know which one of you wanted to just talk about that for a couple of minutes. And I just wanted to also say that we're trying to locate Luke to take a look at this, you know, and give us his opinion on the legality of everything. We don't want to hand this over until we know that everything is, you know, is proper, and any other ideas that he has, because we've gone from a lot of the suggestions came up with in the beginning, and we've put that out there, and we've, you know, used that to kind of move ahead. So Jake or Robert, it is yours. One of you there?
I was muted. Hi, everyone. I'm Robert. I don't know if I've met all of you before, but happy to be here. So we've been looking pretty hard at the tree code these past few weeks, making progress, but it is a pretty lengthy process, I think, just because of how dense it can be. We've been looking at other tree codes for inspiration and for direct changes that we might be able to use in the town of Mamaroneck tree code to make it stronger. And we've also just been using our own sensibilities, I guess, to see where there might be items that are too vague and too prone to loopholes, so we can fix those up as well and hopefully suggest changes that might get approved. So at this point, though there are smaller items we've marked up throughout the code, we've narrowed it down to 7 priorities that we'd like to focus on, and hopefully keep working on them to suggest very well thought out, thorough suggestions for how they might actually be written. At this point, they're a little more general, but our priorities, number 1, we want to get rid of this exemption for the 20,000 square feet or less rule. It essentially gives lots under that area a pass to the whole permitting process So trees are vulnerable on these properties without going through the procedures that the rest of the town properties would. Two, we want to look at the penalty process and restructure this. As it stands now, the penalties for cutting down trees outside the proper channels, outside the proper permitting process, aren't enough to disincentivize people from acting on their own terms without permitting. This is something that could be strengthened to make people think twice before they cut trees down. Three, in the town code as it is, the section 207.4 criteria for removal of trees, there's a list of criteria that must be taken into account by the environmental planner during the permitting decision. And the way it's stated is that the following criteria may be used as reason for removal of the tree. And then there's a list of valid reasons. But the way this section is written and the items that are presented are vague enough where we think trees could be, or permits could be handed out to remove trees where other considerations should be taken, where the value of the tree might not be as apparent and not taken in consideration during the permitting process. So our aim is to include all of these sort of pro-tree factors and to make it so the process isn't so subjective, so that there's a better way to look at these different factors and to make a decision based on what we have in writing, and less so off of the on the discretion of one person. And then for the replacement tree process, should be in section 207.7, tree removal and restoration. We want to, I think there needs to be a better system for the replacement of trees in cases where trees are removed on property and based on size or other factors related to the nature of the property. Trees can't be replaced in kind. There are other options, planting multiple smaller trees, or even putting funds into the town tree fund. This is a section that needs to be better written out. The current rules are pretty vague and they don't reflect the value of some of these very large trees. I guess as a running theme throughout how we're looking at the code, we want the value of the trees to be taken into account. And so in this section, as they're replaced due to the size and ecological benefits, and so on, restoring and replanting trees should reflect this. We want, as our fifth point, to expand upon the notification system that's in place for trees that are being removed to the neighborhood in which they exist. The current rule is that property owners within a 250-foot radius of the area in question shall be notified. We think there's more that can be done, either with more modern processes, utilizing a town website, other options like that. Also simple things like making signs more visible for people who pass by, and possibly even expanding the radius or taking up a different solution to make sure that people who are most affected by the permitting decision, the removal decision, have a say before the tree is taken down, and there's nothing they can do. 6, address change of property and land raising as an excuse as a reason for clear cutting. So we just want to solidify the code so that development, changing the property, doesn't mean that existing trees are looked at as barriers to development, and sort of burdens that might need to be removed for plans to take place. And finally, looking at the permit fees, currently it's $75 to apply for a permit for up to 4 trees, and then $15 for each additional tree after that, which we think is on the low side. And again, it doesn't reflect the value of these trees, especially once you get past this initial $75. It's fairly cheap. And nothing about this reflects the size of the trees or the age of the trees, the species, all things that we would like to be considered when it comes to payment for applications. So those are our 7 points. Jake, if I've missed anything and you'd like to add on to that, please do. That's what I had in my note.
You've done a perfect job. That's where we stand now. The question is, how do we move forward? And Arlene is working with Mitch to sort that out.
Well, first of all, thank you for that report. It sounds like you're doing all the right things and moving methodically, and it sounds like a comprehensive overview. I mean, maybe there are other areas, but if we could affect those 7 areas you've mentioned, that would be a great step forward. Other comments?
Well, Mitch, what do you suggest? What do you think our next step? I think there's still work to be done on this. This is not, they've worked really hard. There's a lot of, real research and, reading and rework. There's a lot of input, and, they spent a lot of time on this, and we'll have another meeting, I'm sure, soon. But after that, at that point, what do you see as our next step?
Oh yes, Jeffrey is still here, but I think we would do the same. One idea is to do the same thing for the tree code that we did with 5G. We were able to compare different codes from other localities. You're obviously doing just that. The next step was then to get a red line of the existing Mamaroneck, town of Mamaroneck code with the changes you're proposing. And then for each of the 7 areas, to the extent that there's backup information or examples from other municipalities that you'd like to show us in terms of alternatives or whatever, then just have those as a companion document.
Mitch,
yeah.
If I had a magic wand, I would want to work with at least a representative of the town board early on to get their buy-in of, which of the priorities are even acceptable, so that we don't spin our wheels getting into the details and then find that it's out of hand, just not going to happen.
Okay, so Jeffrey is here, but I'm afraid to put him on the spot about these. But Jeffrey, just off the top of your head, given the 7 areas of the code that they've talked about, that the tree team would like to adjust, was any of those sounds like a no-fly zone as far as you can tell?
Well, Mitch, first of all, it's never like you to put anyone on the spot. So let's just, we'll start with that, all right? But Jacob, I would say that, the first course of action would, contact me directly. And I think that working with the town, but I'm sorry, Mitch, to back up, none of the 7 objectives which you listed, Robert, would be no-fly zones. And I think, and I go back to the board, that, we're looking at everything in a totality, and that, yes, we realize that our existing ordinance is outdated and it needs to be revamped. So, Jacob, to look at, to answer your question, it's a matter then of redlining, as Mitch said, and working with our town lawyer, to come up with a revised proposal in terms of an ordinance, that we could present to the board. So I would say A, contact myself, and then B, we can contact jointly our town lawyer and work in collaboration with Robert, what you're putting together, and what the town council feels is correct. And this way you're not spinning your wheels.
Great, that would be great.
Good. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Arlene, anything else?
I think that was, as far as the tree planting in the town, I've spoken to Liz and we've had some input, of other locations. So I've sent all of that off to her. The only, but I think they're kind of keeping it kind of a town, a town project. I think that we're not as involved, except for finding other locations. So as we're finding these locations, we're passing that along to them. And I think that's from what I understand, from what it seems like, that's kind of the way they want it.
Okay. Sue, we know that the town planted a number of trees in April and maybe planting a few others before the summer. Do we actually have the street? Is there a list of street addresses or locations where the town's actually done this?
I can ask Liz.
Okay, because I know that there have been, there are things in Nancy's newsletter, but it would be great to start plotting these on a map and be able to show residents at the end of the year that, the town is actually, turning the ship here and is doing something very positive. And
Mitch, we have, Liz gave me, there is a list.
Okay.
With, I forget how many trees, with the streets, some of the locations, for the initial group of trees, which I think is something like 20.
Right.
So that she already has that planned out.
So has the town planted all 20, Arlene?
No.
Oh.
No, and I think some of them are going to be planted in the fall.
Oh, okay.
Going to plant, and they need to do it very soon. They've planted a few already. They planted a few. I'm thinking of, where is it? Down near the duck pond. They planted a few over there. I'm not sure where else. But they need to do it soon because once it gets really warm, they're not going to plant it.
Right. Okay, so Arlene, maybe if you can send me the list,
Okay, sure.
I'll start a new map.
Arlene, do you have a list for all of the trees, and Liz has gone along and is changing your list?
No, I think she used a lot. She had some others, and then she's using several of the ones that we've suggested. But she's gotten, I'm still a little bit confused because they're getting these trees. Some of them were donations from the nursery, from Joanne's. The ones from Pat Haggerty are separate. He did a tree giveaway, similar to ours, I think, but people got certificates to get trees, pick up trees to plant in their own yards. So that was separate. That has changed. That's not the way that started out. So that's kind of how that worked out. You know, and we have the list, and so there were a lot of donations. A lot of this, I think, gets planted by the town. The town does
I'm sure.
for most of this.
I'm sure.
One of our big problems that there are some invasive species that are on that list.
And whose list?
On Liz's list. It's about 4 trees that are, non-native is not an issue. Because now, you know, a lot of trees that may have been southern trees at some point are moving north. So, you know, that's not a problem. We all have non-native of a lot of plants, trees, but a couple are invasives. And we're trying to figure out, should we send maybe a suggestion to the town? This is something maybe you can.
See, I think, Arlene,
yeah,
I think it should be clearly stated that the list that the town had, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is not the list that is currently being used. Is that a true statement?
You mean that you're saying that the list, her list of trees that are going into the ground,
right,
is not coming, yes, is not coming from the town's
list.
Yeah.
I just want to add something really quickly. The tree, I believe that the tree that Pat gave was the tree that was planted at the ceremony on Arbor Day, the oak. So that's the tree he gave to the town, and the others are what Arlene mentioned, his gift all together with Larchmont Nurseries, and basically putting that together. And we supplied members of the Healthy Yards Committee, Mary Conway and Perry, as you know, and Tree Committee, excuse me. Well, we're all the same people. You know, supplied the list of natives that Pat Haggerty voluntarily sort of educated himself about, and went to talk to Joanne at Larchmont Nurseries about. The problem is that sometimes the traditional tree purchasing by Larchmont Nurseries, who have offered a lot of trees to Larchmont and Mamaroneck over the years, but they haven't gotten to change their ordering and their habits, basically. I think it's a very good idea, and Mitch, we're asking really, and Jeffrey also as well, what would be the best way, as Arlene said, for us to try to get the invasive species off the planting list for Mamaroneck. In other words, that we wouldn't take certain trees that Larchmont Nurseries, as generous as they are, want to offer, because they have the calorie pear that was recently planted. There are 3 of them recently planted. Those have been made illegal in the state of Delaware, which is not that far away. So we don't want to be planting invasive species of trees. I think we need an educational effort in that regard. And we're not, I think Arlene was saying, asking what's the best way for us to proceed.
Mitch, you have a growing committee here of people interested in the trees, and you're really setting up your system going into the future. If you want the town to be responsive to what the collaborative has to say about the whole tree piece, you know, we come up against this, what the town is doing and what the collaborative is doing, and you actually have a critical mass of people that are involved in the trees and in the work that surrounds them. And so to set up that system, it's possible that the collaborative needs to lay out what the process is, not just let the process be laid out by the town and they're just, you know, whatever you want to do. They're more conservative.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Michelle, but I think also the collab is an advisory board, right? Is kind of our, you know, right, as an advisory board to the town. So with that in mind, you know, maybe we need to just advise. And I don't, you know, and I don't want to, I think Liz does a really good job with so many things. And I think that she's gotten a lot of, I'm not sure where some of the push has come from, but it's.
No, I think that Liz can meet with the collaborative about this and come up with a reasonable plan, but I don't really think it's appropriate for anybody to be sort of, have their legs taken out from under them.
I thought we had discussed and like agreed that we were going to reach out to Liz and that there was going to be a discussion with her one-on-one, just gently expressing our ideas before it becomes like a big conference. Like, what happened to that?
No, I did speak to her. We had a good conversation. I mean, I think in the beginning she thought, she felt that she does research on this. She gets input from different places, and I think she also gets there's a lot of input from Joanne too. So, I mean, at a certain point, I think the collab needs to come up with, I don't know what you want to call it, but some kind of advice that we just don't want to see invasives planted for whatever reason.
So she basically said the pear is good for salt, and that's why we planted it on Myrtle Avenue, because it's going to be hit by cars. And so she has reasons behind the invasives, but I
there's
think maybe
others.
If there's some sort of like, you're allowed to have 2 invasives that have specific reasons, but not 4 invasive, that some sort of negotiation around that, because clearly we can't say your expertise and Joanne's mean nothing when this is what they do for a living.
Right,
But there has to be like what we think also has to somehow be incorporated into the process.
I mean, there were about 4 different highly invasive species. And
the pear, and what were do you remember the other 3 were?
I don't have it in front of me, and I didn't make this up. I got other input.
Yeah.
So those are, and with the website for some of the official places where you could actually, look that up.
Reference.
Yeah. So, so I'm not sure. I mean,
So could in the interest of time, because it's getting a bit late.
Yes.
Arlene, let me find a time for you and me to talk.
Okay.
For the end of the week. I think probably what's going to happen is I'm going to ask the tree team. The tree team should put together a memo, 1 page or less. 3 paragraphs would be good. 2 paragraphs might be better. And just lay out what you think and the specific action you want to see taken. And then, Arlene, I think, we may share this with Jeffrey and Nancy before we do anything else.
Okay, yes, I think that's fine.
So maybe actually we just had that phone call. So if you guys can put together something by the end of the week on a page or less with the specific actions you want, send it to me. I'll take a look at it. If there are any adjustments needed, then we can send it to Jeffrey and Nancy and Sue and see where it goes from there.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. It being just about 8:15, we have 2 items left. Mark, did you want to make a very quick report on Compost Give Back Day?
A very big success. Is that short enough?
Perfect.
Perfect.
I got Jeff to laugh. That means it was a winner.
That was good.
Perfect.
We had about over 110 people showed up. We registered for giveaway trees. It was very well conducted by the town staff who helped us immensely. We actually learned that, and I've already implemented, if we do it next year, that we have to tell people not to fill garbage cans because they're heavy to lift back up, and some people don't want to do that and they need help. But the other thing that we did learn, which I think is a credit to Sue, is that the outreach for compost, the #1 item was the e-blast, so that the e-blast is having an effect on bringing new people into events in the town. And that I think is very important to note for any activity that the town is doing, that it is having an effect. So that if you do put something out there, let's say it's June's special speaker or the pollinators, that's good. I know I've gone overboard, and I'll also just go right to an update on Love Your Food and all the work that Karen's done. And we've implemented some new things at the farmers market, like name tags. And I'd love to, someone had an idea of having a high school student design something. I'd love to have a design of a card, which is a name tag with some sort of logo or little icons or whatever you want to call them, pictures that we could put names on, and then everyone would be identified. We were quite successful this past weekend. Compared to a compost day, we sold basically one set of plastic of compostable bags, but at the farmers market, it was rainy, it was cold. We sold basically 1 and 1. So our outreach for that is not as great as it was when it began. As far as the amount of food that we've composted, this last week, we had 3,690 pounds, or a ton and 1.8 tons. During the year to date, we've had 27 tons. And Jeff, I'm going to put you on the spot because Mitch has told me that I take lessons from him. Last collaborative meeting, you were going to look into whether the town was going to, what the turnover to suburban in the Westchester County pricing is. And I know it hasn't been done yet. I know that we're still discussing the sanitation commission, but is there any timeline that's that you've learned about?
Mark, with everything, the town is still finalizing and going forward with the garbage district / commission with the village. So that's taking precedent over, finalizing with suburban. But we are going to move forward. But the priority right now has been just to working out the details with the village. So I would say that this being May, by July, we will have hopefully finalized our plans to move forward with the village. And at the same time, hopefully we'll have finalized what we're doing with suburban.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Well done, Mark. June, where are you, June? There you are. So quickly, if you could.
You're muted, June.
Sorry, guys. I can be really quick. I wrote up course descriptions for a set of 3 classes we can give for the Larchmont Mamaroneck continuing education. Martha, the executive director, responded. She's prioritized them. She came up with a 4th suggestion for a session on plastics in general. But I will be in touch with her, and we're going to be finalizing some things so she can start promoting them for July. So probably in the next few weeks, we'll finalize a program. She'll promote them in July. She wants to set up classes for the beginning of October. She gave us specific dates. They will be free to the public. But lots of discussion internally has to happen so we can actually have speakers and people to lead those programs. But so that's underway. And I'll come back.
Quickly list the 3 or 4 program topics?
I didn't bring the course descriptions, but there's something for each of the priorities, something on,
Okay.
yeah, love your food, something on energy, which was grid rewards and solar. And then there was one on healthy yards, which we called bugs, buds, and beds, the garden kind. She was a little concerned. She felt that our position was a bit controversial. So that leads me to just quickly, in less than 30 seconds, I hope that every attendee and participant of the Sustainability Collaborative does sign up for the May 19th speaker session. If you don't register, I think, Mitch, you're going to require a note from their doctor to find out why they are not supporting. We are not supporting each other. So I expect to see 30 registrants from our team. And talk about eBlast. Catherine Parker got in touch with me last night and asked me if we wanted to send a flyer out to everybody in her district. That's how much she was behind what we're doing. If anybody doesn't know Catherine Parker, she's our New York State member of the legislature and very environmentally conscious. I asked her if we could just do it for Larchmont and Mamaroneck. So I just want everybody to understand, we wouldn't have a problem filling seats, so to speak. Our priority is to engage Larchmont and Mamaroneck residents who we can then bring into our Healthy Yards program. There's not a problem of getting broader promotion. You know, we could sell the house out, so to speak. It's really important to do it for our community. A, we're going to have a limited amount of time for Q&A, and B, the only way we can be accountable for results is to see how many people take the pledge.
Right.
So where we're not here as a promotional arm for Westchester County, although there will be plenty of people who aren't from Larchmont and Mamaroneck who are registering.
Is there a limit, June, to how many they can have on their Zoom?
There's a large capacity for registration, but again, there's going to be only so much time for Q&A. And the reason we're doing this isn't to change the entire world. It's to try to grow awareness in our community. So just so you understand, we could easily have completed the capacity of the Zoom, because there's lots of people who are interested in this subject. But we've used a little self-discipline on which promotional channels to, and it's a wonderful sign that Catherine Parker offered to, and she sent it out at exactly 6 o'clock today. So if you guys are on her mailing list, her email list, you'll go home or you'll open up your computer and you'll see it.
Great.
Mitch, one other thing I did forget, on this Saturday, Okra through Joe and the students at the high school are having their first pickup of food waste by bicycle and trailer on a pilot project on 2 streets in the village of Larchmont. Again, it's being controlled as far as how many people can sign up to a very small area at this point. But that is also going on in another Okra type activity.
That's great. All right. Anything else this evening, anyone? Okay. Again, thank you so much for sticking with us. Our next meeting is theoretically June the 8th, 4 weeks from now. And hopefully Sue and I will figure out someplace outside with grass nearby that we can hold this. All right. Thanks very much, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.